Today, we are making this video just to celebrate 20 great years of the Cat Empire, 8 studio albums. This is my Cat Empithon. We're marathoning it. We're listening to all the albums. I'm going to give my honest takes on each album as they come up, starting with their first album, self-titled, The Cat Empire. Whew. Cat Empire, Album 1. That is a great first album. Any band would be proud to put that out. You know, it's so unique. People who know only a little bit about the Cat Empire generally are familiar because of this album. It did super well. It has some really great songs on there, and listening back to it, I always thought like the experimental nature of the track list made it, I don't know, I thought it was rougher around the edges in the past, but it's a pretty clean album. Listening back to it, like even the weird stuff is very sonically tight, the performances are great, and the band just really proved that they're this weird kind of... They described themselves at the time as tricking people into liking jazz through pop. And even then you have all these Spanish sounds in there, like Latin American music sounds. And eclectic is a word that comes up a lot. It's very hard to describe the Cat Empire without just listening to them. And I think that first album, they will branch out in their sound and refine it over time. But the first album lays such a solid foundation. It's no wonder they were able to continue on. So if I were to give this album a ranking, because I love rankings, doesn't the whole internet love rankings? Even though I think the Cat Empire has other S-tier albums, I think this one should definitely get the recognition it deserves. Besides like Manifesto being weirdly the least emblematic of the band's sound, I think the whole album's pretty solid. So I'm going to give it an S tier. It won't be alone in the S tier rank, but it deserves it. The Cat Empire, self-titled, is excellent. Moving right on forward with this Cat Empithon, we are now going to be listening to 2006's Two Shoes. I'm going to rank it pretty high on the basis that this album really was written and recorded to fill out their festival playlists, I feel like. You get Sly, Two Shoes, Soli Sombra, like, those are all made to be played live. Like, they work so well here, and you can hear the stage, like, coming through on this recording. This album was recorded, like, in Latin America, which made it, I think, their first, like, technical international recording. Something we'll learn about the Cat Empire together is that they travel all over the world. They play music globally. And a large part of their appeal is that their music is for people, you know, it doesn't matter where you're from. Even though they're Australian, I would call them a world band, even though I don't really like that term, and I feel like I'm making it up. And this really kind of kicked that off. They already had great writing chops, and this album, I think, has a little more direction than Cat Empire self-titled. That being said, there's a lot more filler tracks on this album than their first LP. And because of that, it is going to bring my ranking down a bit. It is still a solid album, and I can't really... I'm torn, right? Because I gave the first album an S right off the bat. Though I'm going to stick to my guns here. I think people would want it to at least be an A. But I'm going to call this one a B tier. It's a B tier album. Yeah, that's going to piss some people off. My justification that keeps it just below A rank, I think ultimately comes to preference. Weirdly enough, despite this really being catered to their live audiences, or maybe it's because of that, I desire to listen to this album less frequently than any other Cat Empire project that's out there. For whatever reason, this one doesn't get me excited the same way other albums do. And that's what pushed it down to B for me. Not because it's bad. B is for, boy, that's pretty good for an album I don't really care too much about. Suddenly as Cities ends anymore also ends just as abruptly. And
Good.
yeah, what a...
Hey.
Leaves you wanting more.
Crazy surprise.
Leave them wanting before.
This is a good album. Who would have known?
The way we've been talking about
it. Listen to it.
Yeah, oh my gosh. And now we've successfully listened to it. Another time, I couldn't tell you how many times I've listened to all these songs, but a lot. Definitely a lot.
A number that is in the range that is difficult to conceptualize. Therefore, what comparison is?
As we've
Football
stated,
fields. No, that's not.
I've listened to it a football field's length.
It's a different measurement.
It's both length.
Yeah, but of time or distance, it's very different.
To wrap up, kind of some final thoughts on this album. It is really great as an album experience. We both discussed why we kind of enjoy the album listening experience versus more of a playlisty type thing. Both have their value, but an album like this proves the value of listening through on an album.
Yeah, and it gives us other songs that, like, you know, some of my favorites from this album are on a number of my playlists, and those are great, but I feel like that gives space for the rest of them too, because they are good, and I think that they are best kind of in context.
Yeah, the other ones that aren't like the playlistable ones have their place when doing a proper listen through, and I trash on a couple of them, specifically Waltz and Boogaloo, but even Waltz, which I think is one of the worst songs in their entire discography, could be not that way if it started 2 minutes later into the track. So I think it speaks to the quality of the band and this album. Still confused why they don't like it, but everyone has their preference.
The music isn't playing anymore, but it is still in my head. It's going to be in my head, though, later, which is, you know, another good sign that it's good.
Agreed.
If earworming is indicative of quality of music, then...
I think so, because even songs that people find, like, annoying earworms, like, are usually popular for a reason, and, like...
Yeah.
There's something to be said about making a song that's catchy, that you remember and hum to yourself for when you're not listening to it, you know? I could get into a whole tangent about that, but we'll try to wrap it up.
That's the one. Anyway,
Song for Elias. Stand out.
Yeah, this contains a good number of Hero's favorites. What's the other album that was out more recently that you were
Stolen Diamonds.
Stolen Diamonds.
Stolen Diamonds
That's
is
the
going
other
to
one I'm
rank
really
high.
familiar with, that I'm probably most familiar with. Yeah. Have you reviewed that one yet?
Not yet. I haven't even recorded. I've been recording out of order, and I've now caught up to recordings with this one. For recordings, I'm up to Steal the Light is the next one I have to do. And that will also
Schmorder, do them in the order you want to do them in.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, that just means that, you know, Stolen Diamonds coming soon to...
a YouTube near you.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've so far ranked, this might not mean much to you, or it will. I've ranked album 1 as an S tier.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. I was like, are you doing a tier list? This could be a tier list.
It's a tier list.
That's how you tie them all together too. It's just, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Album 2, B tier. I think a lot of people won't like that decision, the fans at least, because that one's a classic. And this one's a little more underground, but I honestly think it's better. It's going to join album 1 in the S tiers. No ifs, ands, or buts.
S tier.
It's an S tier. You agree with said ranking? I kind of just jumped the gun.
Well, I've also only been here for this one. I also do think that my general Cat Empire opinions are probably largely influenced by you. I'm sure I still have some of my favorites.
Makes sense.
Or
I am
maybe
a
you just have
tastemaker.
objectively correct taste in music. Who's to say? But I tend to agree with you. I agree with you on, like, the favorites of the album for sure. And I'd have to do a full listen through of all of them to rank them all.
Yeah, it's comparative. Yeah. But in isolation, this one's like S tier quality. It's a good one. Yeah. Heck yeah. Something I'm remembering about this album that will be really fun for the car listening aspect of things. This album has some really catchy hooks. Good for the singing along. We're back in the car now. We're filming unchronologically, but for me, The next album we're listening to in this Cat Empithon is their third studio album, So Many Nights. This album that we're about to listen to especially feels like the band's throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks album. There's a lot of really wide departures from their usual sound, which can make it very unique and enjoyable to listen to. But I think I'm gonna predict now that my ranking for it is gonna be lower. All right. I know the camera's really dark. I don't even know if I'll be able to get enough of me in this in post recovering the footage. But I think that's a nice little artistic statement we wrote out into the night through So Many Nights. And yeah, so I think my reason for not liking this album as much, I kind of misspoke. It's not really an inconsistent album. I think it's consistent fine enough, with the exception of Voodoo Cowboy. Now, the reason I think I kind of assumed, or in the past thought that was this album being inconsistent, is at that same moment the biggest departure musically on the album happens is also when the album kind of tanks in terms of energy levels. I mean, this album is obviously kind of, it's a more introspective look at the nightlife, but the album gets bloated in the second half. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this album, the band gives a lot of breathing room to each song, so you can really digest these songs, but also I think some of them just kind of overstay their welcome or could have been cut from the album entirely. The first half of the album does not match the energy of the second half of the album. Given the thing is pretty bloated, it has Voodoo Cowboy, which I think is the most unnecessary song in the band's discography. I am going to give it a D rank. Or you know what? We're gonna hook it back up. Because this album does make up for a little bit of the slower pacing with some really catchy hooks, probably some of the band's catchiest hooks with songs like Fishies and Panama. I think this album, we can bring it up to a C tier. It's a perfectly average album. It would not be where I recommend you start when listening to the Cat Empire. Really hardcore fans, I think, would get the most enjoyment out of this anyway. Final rankings, So Many Nights, 2007 and 2008. We're gonna give that a C tier. Now that we're up to our 5th episode, we're starting to see how my opinions on various albums compare to one another. It's starting to get a little more exciting in the world of rankings. And since we're now halfway through this series, I figured I'd go ahead and celebrate with a little wine. The Cat Empire is my favorite band. They are now disbanding, at least the original lineup of band members are disbanding. Felix Reibel, lead vocalist and percussionist, as well as Ollie McGill, lead keyboardist. They will be continuing the band. Numero 4. So close to finishing it. Uh-oh, Karen's about to die. Something's about to end. Can we make it to the final note? Yeah, we can. Alright, guys. Cameron's about to die. So, we gotta wrap this shit up now. Oh god, fuck. I'm spilling things. This album, it's very cinematic, very epic. It was very enjoyable while drinking wine. I will say, though, you do have to be in the mood for that kind of music, which is why I was more surprised this time, like, oh, I'm enjoying myself watching this. Like, yeah, of course, I'm in the mood to listen to it, but oftentimes I'm not, which is why I think the album doesn't hit as often for me, but the production is really solid, really clean. They mix things up, and it definitely feels like the formula of the Cat Empire is being broken a bit. Being broken to fit this new formula, this new concept album of a very big, boisterous concert band, or what am I trying to say? It's different than what you usually hear from the Cat Empire, so you're either going to want to listen to it or you're going to want to listen to what they more usually provide from any other album in their discography. I will say this one is the most different from all their other albums, so it's harder to rank it. It's definitely more difficult to rank it, but I will rank it, and we're gonna rank it because of the nature of the album. It's a well-produced album, but it is a album with some lesser-known songs. It's average. We'll say it like this, you know. I've heard things they're doing on this album before. It's average, so we're gonna give it a C for cinema. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I decided that was gonna be the ranking before I even started recording today. It was predestined, and if you're pissed off about it, well, too bad, because this is my series, and no one can even see your dislike. Thank you for tuning in today. Like, comment if you liked the video and want to give feedback. Subscribe. Share this video with a friend who you think also likes the Cat Empire. Otherwise, I don't have any other requests of you other than to drink water like I am about to do.
I haven't listened to this particular album before, or much Cat Empire at all, to be fair.
Mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing to me. Yeah, and that was Steal the Light by Cat Empire.
That was great. That was awesome. I'm so excited to add some of that music to my own playlist.
Exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm obviously a super fan of the band, which you know by being friends with me.
Yes.
And so we can also take these off if we would like. So I definitely was hyping this up for a bit. Did it live up to expectations? Were there things that surprised you that you weren't expecting coming in?
I think it exceeded my expectations a little bit. I think it did. I liked it more than I thought I would, even though...
I think from the first track, when I saw like your face light up, I was like, okay, we're in for a good time.
He's gonna be sitting here miserable the entire time.
Yeah, if like you weren't into Brighter Than Gold, we might have been in trouble.
Cat Empithon episode gone wrong. I think it was themed a little bit more than I was expecting. Like, I was expecting just kind of like jammies.
Yeah.
But it was really cohesive in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I think what makes this one of the most beloved albums within the band, you've heard more from Stolen Diamonds, and that one's deliberately more of a lot of, it's singles based, so it probably more what you were expecting with the little bit you'd heard before. It's
Yeah,
just like
exactly.
they kind of come on, jam for a bit, and then step away. So, yeah, I've always enjoyed listening to their albums specifically, and so...
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to have that experience as well. Yeah, for me, this album isn't necessarily my favorite because I just have my preferences for some of the other albums, but I know this is a lot of people's favorite, and it's definitely up there. I've been ranking these as I've been going, and I mean, there's no other place that I could put it than an S tier. This album is just absolutely perfection for the band. They love it. Everyone else loves it. It kind of defines the second era of the band, I would say. Like, they have a bunch of great music before, as you know from tuning into this series. But this really starts their kind of, for lack of a better word, but actually maybe it's perfect here. It kind of begins the climax of the band's career. Get it? It's because it's sexy. The album's sexy. That's also just this album sonically is just very dancey, but in that kind of like hot way.
Yeah.
Makes
Like
you want to move your body.
Go into like a kind of a dance bar.
Yeah, I would love to pop into a bar and have the Cat Empire playing. Maybe in Australia.
Yeah. All right, time to go down under.
Yep, I want to someday. That'd be awesome. Let us know what you think of this album below. What are some of your favorite tracks from Cat Empire? Hello, my dears. Hero and Lamb Chop here. This is the 7th installment of the Cat Empithon, where I listen to every single record in the Cat Empire's discography. Rising with the Sun is a personal favorite of mine. Every Cat Empire album has a place for me in my life, but this one has always been one I return to when I'm feeling a little more anxious or just need to chill out. Excuse my fridge behind me. Rising with the Sun is an album that I listen to when I'm feeling anxious or stressed out. It's just a nice feel-good album. This is the one I listen to calm my nerves. It's nice. My happy place of a Cat Empire album, if you will. It is well known that Cities is my favorite album, but when I'm going to Cities, I'm already in a happy mood. Whereas Rising with the Sun can kind of lift me into the happier mood, bring me from my sad place to my happy place. Y'all know how happy places work. Midnight is a just absurdly beautiful song. I played this song to fall asleep. This one I played when I'm having a panic attack. I played it during the sexy times, very nice. Why did I compulsively feel to say that in the Bo Rat voice? In the Bo Rat voice. This album really is kind of, the whole experience is really, really subtle. The band is just kind of getting back together for this one and writing music they want to write and having a good time. And they made their statement with the last album. They found the sound they like. And with Rising with the Sun, they just got to take this concept album. It's like a light concept, I would say, and just hit it out of the park. Knock it home. Yeah, Rising with the Sun. I would say the only track that's less revisitable is Bataclan. Not because it's a bad song sonically at all, but just because it is the most specific of all the tracks and has the most, I would say, like, baggage with it because of what it's about. But it's still an essential track and an essential part of the album. It's the only one that really kind of deviates, but not even that much from the album. So the entire thing is just a very pleasant experience. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I should be critical. Probably. I always have something to gripe about with these albums. Just because, when you listen to something enough times, you're gonna see the cracks in it. But it's hard to find cracks in this one. It's just a good album. I have to say that this album has to get the S tier from me. Obviously. We knew this going into this, right? When I made my obvious bias that I love this one. It's just a feel-good album. Even Bataclan, which is like the heavier of the songs, it doesn't feel like oppressively heavy and is a very enjoyable song. I've listened to it many times. It's on my general Cat Empire playlist. Yeah, the album's good. The album is good. And that's why it's in the S tier. It's freaking great. It's one of their best. Each album has their strengths and weaknesses, and this one's weaknesses are negligible at worst. Give this album a listen if you haven't. It'll bring warmth to your day. It's always sad when your favorite band breaks up, and they kind of did an AC/DC thing, / a Queen thing, where you can still see AC/DC or Queen live, but it's not all the same people. So, like...
No, it's just the same.
And they will keep releasing music, but there was like 6 original guys. Only 2 of the original 6 are staying, and then the rest is like new people. Yeah. So it could be pretty different, honestly, going forward. So I consider this the discography of the Cat Empire. And ending off on a high note, for me personally, I've been ranking the albums in this series. So for those people who care, the final ranking is up on screen now. Stolen Diamond, it's just a band that's been playing for about 20 years at this point and is still on top of their game, has really figured out what makes them sound good. And for this album as well, they were able to pull a bunch of different sounds and turn it into their own. It's not only the kind of thing you can get with a band that's been playing together for 20 years, but it helps that they have so much time playing together that this came out as good as it did for me. I just want to explain a little more to you why Stolen Diamonds didn't also join the other albums in the S tier. I'm sure a lot of you were expecting it to hit S tier as well. So what makes it just a notch lower and puts it into the A tier? See, the thing with Stolen Diamonds is It'll always be very close to me as an experience. Those 8 months of singles coming out, getting super hyped over each one, the artwork that came out with the singles. It was such a cool experience that I can never really listen to Stolen Diamonds as an album like I can the other Cat Empire albums. It's really feels like a playlist, almost, a Cat Empire playlist. So it's still phenomenal, still as good as Stolen Diamonds and Rising with the Sun, which are in S tier. But I think those albums, plus the Cat Empire self-titled album, Cities, of course, all of those, they're just a little stronger overall. Stolen Diamonds is very nice and can serve really well as an introduction to the band. But those albums just above it in the S tier have just a little more for you to sink your teeth into. Then below Stolen Diamonds in B tier is Two Shoes. Now, Two Shoes to me is arguably the Cat Empire's weakest album. There's some real stinkers on that one. Saltwater, Protons, Neutrons, Electrons is not the best either, but that record manages to bring to the table some of the band's most iconic tracks, the ones that you expect to see at their shows. In My Pocket, the title track, Soli Sombra. These are staples of Cat Empire festival set lists. So that definitely bumps up Two Shoes, but it's not my favorite of their albums. It was still early in their career. They were still figuring things out. And then we have Cinema and So Many Nights in C tier. These albums are still good, you put them in the C tier because they're baseline, they're average. They're not my first albums I would recommend to someone when introducing them to the Cat Empire. The biggest reason being that these albums are the largest departures from the band's regular sound. A lot of the fun of the Cat Empire is the variety they can bring to the table, but Cinema and So Many Nights really isn't representative of what the Cat Empire is. There's some really fun songs on those records, some really great production, as with every Cat Empire record. But yeah, we have to have something on the lowest rank, and those ones just happen to be the weakest of the bunch. Nothing in D tier, nothing in F tier. It's a good band. And if you think that's lame, well, it's my tier list. That's it. That's my final ranking of the 8 Cat Empire studio albums.